Okay, our next speaker is Dr. Bernd Friedlander. He's a doctor of chiropractic. He has a degree in physical education and exercise physiology from San Francisco State University. He's made it his mission to learn how athletes could improve performance at an optimum level while reducing his or her chances of injury. He began his career as a physical therapist and later attended the Los Angeles College of Chiropractic in 1977. And while attending LACC, he was introduced to a professional wrestler whose influence was instrumental in setting him on a course of health, nutrition, and wellness, all of which has led him on a course in studying and developing nutritional and dietary supplementation. With the 1984 Summer Olympics at hand, Dr. Friedlander was approached by some of the UCLA coaches, US Olympic teams, and other interested athletes from numerous colleges to help them prepare for the upcoming games. And he was able to train with these athletes and coaches on the necessity of good nutrition, stretching, and flexibility, and had the opportunity to work with elite athletes and their coaches as Evelyn Ashford, one of the fastest women in the world, Pat Connolly, Carl Lewis, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, Bob Kersee, Florence Griffith-Joyner, John Smith, Bob Seagren, Wilt Chamberlain, and Bob Bush, to name a few. And you can read more of his background. It's distinguished. He's got a lot of experience in working with different people and experimental things. But let me just introduce Dr. Bernd Friedlander. Please welcome.
Am I on? Great. All right, let's wake up. First of all, everybody stand up. Let's do some breathing exercise before we all die. And I have, so I want you to just take a deep breath through the nose at a 4, hold it in 4 seconds, hold it for 7 seconds, and let it out for 8 seconds. Okay, let's do that. Let it out slowly. I think this is not going to work, but maybe we can do it.
It will work.
All right.
It won't sound as good, but sure.
Okay, let's keep on breathing, folks. Don't stop.
Put it on his nose.
I do have insurance that I do sell. Let's go again. Let's take a deep breath. Hold it for 7 seconds and let it out for 8 seconds. And this helps to rechannel the brain and increase CO2 levels. And that's a very big factor in our life. We don't breathe enough and we don't get enough CO2. And CO2 is the basic foundation for everything that happens in our electrical system in our body. So again, so what I do with athletes when I was working in '84, we did this. All right, feel a little better? Yes. Okay, that'll be $50 each. Accounts receivable person is right there in front. Raise your hand. All right, you can reach me at Dr. Here, take the information because you're going to ask me a million things afterwards. And I have a website, drbernfriedlander.com, and I'm on Instagram, Facebook. It's at Dr. Bernd Friedlander, Facebook, Instagram, okay? So let me explain, and a lot of it, what Matthew explained to you, is that I started in physical therapy and I started working with athletes, and while receiving my chiropractic degree, I was asked by UCLA to work with the athletes there and the track team. And then I was selected in 1984 by the U.S. committee to serve as the Olympic coach, the Olympic coach plus also the chiropractor for the '84 Olympics, for the U.S. Olympics. But I also worked with international teams from all over the world because they came to UCLA to train. And so I developed an experience because my background was I played soccer and I played semi-professional and I coached professionally as well. So I had a background in that, and I also ran track in college. So I had a very foundation of athletics and working as an athletic director. And also in 1972-74, as a physical therapist, I developed a number of clienteles, such as, the Kennedys, the Polgettys. And this is because of a physical therapist I worked with who was brilliant beyond anything I ever met and trained me with another fellow named William Ellis from the Edgar Cayce Foundation, who really gave me an inspiration in what I do today. It was Dr. Ellis. So I learned so much about nutrition in 72, 73, 74 that I was well prepared to go out there to train and teach people about diet. Before everybody got into diet, I was already in that field with Palo diet, looking at carbohydrates. And the first thing I did was in 1984, after the Olympics, I was approached by the Raiders. And what I did with the Raiders, I changed their whole dietary and stretching and training because they were overtraining and there were so many injuries. And the reason they came to me, Howie Long had a severe disc problem and couldn't get out of bed. So in one treatment, on Tuesday, he came in when they don't practice, they had a day off. I put him on a magnetic coil, and I treated him, and he got out of bed, out of the table, completely walking normal. And then next morning on Wednesday, I get a call from Howie Long, and I hear his voice, and I go, uh-oh. He goes, "Hi, Dr. Friedlander," like he was dying. And I go, "This is Howie Long." I said, "What the hell did you do to me?" And I go, "Oh, God." He says, "Not only is my back better, but I came in to you with a cold and a flu, and it's totally gone." Well, one day I'll tell you what I did with them because it's way beyond anything I've ever done today because of the magnetic coils and Lavochsky Tesla coils that I used in my practice. I was into what I call different modes of healing. And I got into it because of the people I encounter in my practice were incredible people. I've worked with Robert Atkins when he was alive. I worked with Emil Revici, who's probably one of the greatest minds of our time. Gilbert Ling, who's beyond anybody you can imagine self-physiology. And that gave me an understanding of who we are. But not only that, I wanted to find out who we are. We're cosmics of energy. We're the universe. All of you are the universe with trillions and billions of cells identical to the universe. And once I understood that, I understood the electrons, protons, and neutrons that the sun provides us that gave us life. Without the sun, you and I wouldn't be here. Without water, you and I wouldn't be here. If it wasn't the right mineral structures in the ocean, you and I wouldn't be here. It's the foundation of life. And what's happening today is that, how many of you ever look at your ancestral diet, your ancestral background, your Palo diet? I mean, we come from 100,000 years ago, okay? What did we do 100,000 years ago? We were hunters, gatherers, but we were outdoors. There was no indoor lighting. There was no computers, television, radios, Wi-Fi's, cell phones. We were 14 hours a day. Our circadian body works on that concept of 14 hours a day being in the sun, outdoors. So why do we get sick? Because of these electrons, protons, neutrons, and all these other things that we are not getting anymore is making us ill. It's destroying our mitochondria, our NAD, oxidation reduction state. Everybody here has one function, and Matthew could tell you that, and Dr. Miller there, Philip Miller, welcome back, one of the best doctors we have around here. He's got a practice in Menlo Park, is that Everything works on oxidation reduction. We donate electrons, we receive electrons, we make energy. That's how everything works, oxidation reduction. That's the biological field of every living systems in cell physiology. As long as we keep that oxidation level, 5 to 1, 5 to 2, whatever it is, 500 to 100, that's what happens when we're born. We have a highly proficient electron donation, and that helps with oxygen to create ATP. And NAD plus helps with that. And as we get older, that oxidation reduction goes down and our NAD levels go down. And you know what NAD does for us? The mitochondria uses NAD. It helps to repair every genetic damage that we have today. Every chemical we breathe in, every heavy metal that we accumulate in our body, every polyunsaturated oil that we accumulate in our body damages our DNA, our RNA, and our mitochondria. And what does NAD does? It works on repairing it. Like Dr. Matthew Cook said, we use it for alcohol, we use it for other detoxification process, but if we use it too much in the degenerative process and we don't repair, that's what happens. We lose NAD function and it goes down. So we're born with a very highly oxidation reduction state. Every single cancer cell today is at a reduced state. This is chemistry. This is what the foundation of Harvard and University of Brown and everyone I've ever worked with on cancer, that's what happens. We all become in a reduced state. We lose our ability to make energy. We don't have enough electrons to donate. And we don't have enough NAD to fix and repair the immune system. And the immune system is what keeps us going. It knows how to attack viruses, bacteria, and cancer cells. It keeps it from developing. Natural killer cells, P53. How many of you into intermittent fasting and fasting now? That's the big thing today, right? What do you think it does to us, all these fasting, intermittent fasting? It's an inflammatory condition. It's a stress. It produces stress. How I know? I worked at UCLA in caloric restriction diet with Dr. Roy Walford. And Roy Walford was the premier expert in caloric restriction in the world. And guess what happened to him? He developed Lou Gehrig's disease, right? It's because he suppressed himself from eating enough food to keep his system to work. So he developed oxidative damage. His protein level was so low and his fat levels were so low that he thought he was doing caloric restriction, which is a lot of people are going into intermittent fasting. Yes, I got a doctor saying, doesn't intermittent fasting cause stem cells to grow? Yes, they do. So if I hit you in the head, your stem cells will start growing too, because it's a byproduct of damage, of injury. All stem cells grow to heal the body after trauma, right? So is it good for you? No. Staying away from protein? No. We need protein. You know, our ancestors ate plenty of protein. That was all they ate. They were hunters and gatherers. They ate roots and vegetables and fruits and whatever they can, but they ate protein. And the common denominator I see in vegetarians is that they're missing protein and their thyroid is not functioning and they don't have enough B12. And that's a problem. And everything in genetics, there's a new study, very exciting new study just came out, and I'm on so many boards of universities, so I get a lot of these papers sent to me, that they're now discovering that a lot of illness today that we have today is due to our ancestors, to our grandmother, mothers, and going back even into time where somebody was silica, or they were poisoned by silica, where they were breathing or working and they had lung conditions and they had cancer. And then you inherit that same thing. We are inheriting our ancestors' genetics. And whatever happened to them, you are carrying it. So the epigenetics factor is how do we keep that from happening to us? And that's what epigenetics is changing our lifestyle so we don't get the same thing our mother, father, or ancestors got. There's a whole study now showing that some of the dementias goes back to very far into your ancestors. They had the same condition. And the 23andMe is also coming out that your ancestral factors are causing a lot of these things to occur. So understanding the chemistry of life, I was able to look at and see a patient with cancer, diabetes, heart disease. It doesn't make a difference what they have because they have the same common denominator. It's a pathway that we all take. If I take this direction instead of that direction, I develop something. If I take that direction, I develop something. But if we know how to intercept those pathways and go straight, longevity, health, regeneration occurs. And it's all in the mindset. And how does it happen first? How many of you get up in the morning and say, I love myself, I look great, I am happy, I love myself? Okay, how many of you stand up? Stand up. Okay, everybody, come and give me a hug and give your neighbor a hug. How many of you give a hug? Okay, come on. How many give a hug? The most powerful thing you can do today is hug a tree, hug a dog, give a hug to everyone. How many of you start the day with giving a hug? Good, and that's why you feel good. That is the most important thing we can do. Look, how many of you in the mirror look at yourself and say, oh God, I'm losing my hair, I'm wrinkling. You are, because you're telling yourselves to do that. Everything is controlled by your mindset. You can do anything you want, you can turn anything off if you know how to do it. And one of the people I've learned from was Tony Robbins' coach, who trained Tony. Everything he knew about was that you look at yourself and say positive things about yourself and heal yourself and say, I feel great because nothing's wrong with me and I love myself. And you do that every single morning. For 21 days, you will overcome any condition you know. 21 days. And I've done it clinically with people in my practice where they couldn't function, they couldn't survive. They'd spend $300,000 on going to this doctor, that doctor, going to Dominican Republic and all that. And I saw a lot of patients in my practice that went to the Dominican Republic or anywhere for cancer treatment, and they came back and they almost died because the flight, just the flight on a plane causes radiation, causes circular tumor cells to grow. And that's another thing. So radiation, any type of radiation, will cause circulating tumor cells, CTC, which is the primary cause of all cancer patients to die, is that they grow. These are stem cells that you don't want. And today, I studied this through a guy way back in the 80s and 90s who discovered how to treat cancer by turning off the HCG hormone, the human choriogonotropic hormone. And that was discovered by way back in the early 1900s, and it was the trophoblast, everything. That turning off this hormone turns off cancer cells because estrogen is the major component for every cell to grow. Estrogen is needed for pregnancy, but the cancer cells drive on estrogen. It wants more estrogen. So it goes for more estrogen. And so aging is a factor of inflammation, really. If we don't get rid of the inflammation, we accumulate inflammation, and we don't get enough sunlight, we don't get up in the morning and say, I love myself, and you don't give a hug, that's part of life. That's what we need. That's who we are. The human body is that way. Our cells resonate on happiness and laughter. You know, and the more laughter and happiness, there's not a pill out there that will do that. I'm going to tell you that now. I learned that. And how many of you get deep sleep? How many of you sleep 7 to 8 hours a night deeply? Deeply. Oh, geez, maybe 2 or 3? That is when you regenerate a new body. That's when you have a new brain. That's why dementia occurs. How does your brother sleep at night? How many hours deeply? 3, 4 hours maybe, 5, more?
Probably he sleeps 8 hours anyway.
Does he? Okay. You need to get a good night's sleep. There's nothing else that does that. What interferes with our sleep? Wi-Fi's, television, radios, EMR. Computers, television, radios. Affects our brain, and it stimulates the wrong frequency. Our brain at night has to go into what's called a deltron wavelength. It has to go from 0.5 hertz to 4 hertz. It works in that frequency range.
One of the things I recommend is in the bedroom, you take out every electronic apparatus. Even if you see one warning light, you've got too much. That means clock radios, DVRs, televisions, everything. No electronics. So when you go to bed, it's dark. It's totally dark.
Totally
and that's
dark.
how you get to sleep.
She knows,
Except
right?
if you see the moon.
Jennifer there, when she travels to do conferences with me and I have my own room, I unplug everything. She goes, and I do that. I unplug, I take the circuit breaker into the bedroom and I turn it off. That's the first thing I do with anybody I work with is I say, get the computer and television out of your bedroom, no alarm clock or anything near your bed, keep it 8 feet away, and no Wi-Fi on at night, and don't have your cell phone right next to you. You will never get into a 0.5 to 4 hertz. That is the frequency of life. You know that your heart resonates and beats at a certain frequency called 1.14 hertz. All the cardiologists I talk to, they know that, but they don't understand why. But our brain, our heart is at 1.14 hertz. Everything out there is billions of hertz, megahertz, kilohertz. Everything's too high and affects our system in our body. So we need to reduce that state. At night is the only time we can do that, is to reprogram ourselves to a lower frequency, but you can't have anything around you. You got to stay away from that. So you can see all the things we're talking about, NAD is going to, there's no doubt the future of medicine is, metabolic rate. Now, how many of you have a high metabolic rate? You have to have a good thyroid to have that. And one of the major problems today is everybody is about deficient in thyroid function, right? Barbara, would you say that when you see that in the patient, right? Thyroid is the number one. I remember going back when I was coaching at UCLA, and John Wooden was working out with us on the track. And that's how I met Roy Walford and all that. And the president of UCLA was my patient, who I didn't know he was the president and the chancellor. And he gave me a position at UCLA. But John Wooden introduced me to a guy named Dr. Schwartz. He was 80-somewhat years old. That was John Wooden's doctor. And he says, Bernd, you're in that nutritional area, and you are in the right area. He says, you'll find that everybody, the problem is going to be thyroid. Why? Because if we don't get sun and we don't get light stimulation, and I'll show you how, and we don't need enough protein, and we eat too much polyunsaturated oils, and if we consume too many foods that are carbohydrates, that are estrogenic, and estrogenic blocks the hormone and the thyroid from working right, you're not going to have a good thyroid. If you have a good thyroid, you have a lot of energy, you feel good, you get up in the morning, you don't have any depression, anxiety disorder, you feel great. That's what a thyroid does, and it helps your metabolism so you don't get fat, you don't put any weight on, okay? And that's how it works. It gives you energy. And you need, if you want to do it right, you eat small meals throughout the day, then your metabolic rate increases because your furnace always gets something to burn and something to go. If you start the morning with a protein, just a protein, not a carbohydrate, not a fruit, but a protein, it starts your metabolism and your thyroid to work again. No carbs with your protein, just protein. And you'll see a dramatic, let's take answers after this.
And the role of thyroid, or excuse me, of fluoride in tap water?
That's a small part of it. Also, the big part is much more than that. It's not getting enough natural light and being in Wi-Fi every day. The fluorides, we all have fluorides. There's no way out of it. You get it from your fruits and vegetables. You know that it has fluoride in there, and arsenic and everything else.
I know
it's nature. Nature knows how to take care of it.
I know it's in fluoride. My dad worked on it and putting it in the atom bomb, which won World War II, and few people know that it went in the bomb.
Yeah, you know what fluoride does? It is one of the heavy metals, chemicals that intercepts an electron and removes the electron from any process of doing its work, like energy, like making NAD, and it affects that.
It's in 2/3 of the U.S. water.
Yeah, I know that. We're going to do something about that and not drink anything. How's that? Well, let me go back. So when I work with somebody with cancer, or anybody, I make sure I look at who they are, what they're eating, how much sun they get, how much activity throughout the day, just walking throughout the day. Doesn't have to be. People who go in and exercise for 20, 30 minutes, an hour a day, and go back to their office and sit in a computerized room doesn't do any good. It's going to make them ill. And I see a lot of those people. So what I do with somebody, and I'll share I had amazing results with so many cancer patients, but I have 2 MS patients totally back to walking again. One is a nurse and one is a school teacher. And the nurse got it from vaccines that she had to take in order to be a nurse. And the school teacher was under fluorescent lighting 24 hours a day almost, and she got MS because of that. So we had to do a lifestyle change in their, in their system so that they can get the regeneration properties working again. So one of the things I like to do is I like to look at somebody and I said, okay, let's get some sunlight in your body. Let's stimulate your body with anything we can. If it's a heat lamp from Home Depot or wherever, a $10 heat lamp, you put it up, get a 250 watt heat lamp with a socket, and just every morning and evening, shine it at yourself. That's all you need to do. It brings back photon energy, neutrons, and all that. These are important factors of life and giving and who we are. So the first thing I did with Charlie, who is a fellow that Jennifer will tell you, when he first came to me 3 years ago, we looked at him and we didn't think he's going to make it. He had stage 4 lung cancer. 10 years ago, he had throat cancer. It ended up in his lung. His complexion was beyond any color I've ever seen in my life, right? Dark. He was lucky to get out of his car and come over and meet me. He didn't have the energy. He was emotionally not a happy guy. He was a very depressed person. His wife wanted to leave him because he was not a happy person to be around, right? And our neighbor told me all the story. And he was not a nice guy. He had no energy. And I said, listen, if you want to change and you want to heal, the first thing I want you to do is let's change some of your lifestyle. I want you to get some sun every day. I don't care if it's a half an hour here and a half an hour there and every day. I want you to get out. He went and got himself a light device from Home Depot. And then we started looking at his diet. And I said, we got to change your diet. I want you to have more fruits and vegetables, but cook your vegetables. You cannot eat them raw. You cannot eat raw kale. You cannot eat raw cauliflower or any of the cruciferous vegetables because it throws off your thyroid. It's an anti-thyroid nutrient. So you got to cook everything, and I don't care if you boil it to death. That's what I do. I boil my vegetables to death. And I drink the juice from it too, but I also eat it, and I have no problems. And then I told him to get no chicken in his life. I had to get him anything that is highly corn or soy-fed food. I said no. Grass-fed beef any fish that is white fish, not salmon, it's got to be white fish, and it can be any, like shrimp, scallops, oysters, clams, mussels, as much as you want. But I got them off all the foods that cause high methionine, tryptophan, and cysteine. Why? One of the things I learned in the caloric restriction diet, when I went to the opposite end to find out how we can create the same function that a caloric restriction diet does for animals. In animals, it extends the lifespan and controls cancer. In humans, it works in the early stages, but the longer you do caloric restriction or intermittent, your libido goes down and other functions go down that people don't want to lose, okay? But it's what we discovered in our studies was that the reason caloric and all these intermittent fastings work for a certain point is that it suppresses the oxidative damage in our body. It reduces the polyunsaturated oils that are the major contributing factor to everything that goes on today. It's not sugar. It's not sugar. If you don't eat sugar, you and I wouldn't be here. Sugar is the life force that everything works on. Every protein, fat, and carbohydrate in our body uses NAD, electron, and cytochrome oxidase enzyme. Cytochrome oxidase enzyme to make energy. It breaks everything down into glucose, right? So you have glucose as the final end product that makes ATP. The sugars that you don't want is the carbs that are cooked, like pasta, breads, and cookies and cakes. They're undenatured sugars. They get altered in the cooking process. You don't want that. But you can have cane sugar, you can have honey. You can have all the fruit you want, because fruit has minerals and enzymes. You can juice. I used to work with Gerson. Charlotte Gerson and I worked together a lot. And what I learned from her, that juicing contains and maintains high sources of minerals that are absorbable in our body. We need absorbable minerals in our body. So the Gerson diet works for that. And it replenishes the body with nutrients, potassium, magnesium, sodium. And what is another source that's very important is sodium chloride. It makes our digestive system work. Hydrochloric acid, pepsin, is developed from sodium chloride. And drinking sodium chloride is one of the best things you can do to retain the enzyme function and the electrical component to sleep better. If you drink a little salt water, sodium chloride, white sea salt, before you go to bed, I want you to report back how much better you sleep. How much better you sleep. Because it's an electrolyte that balances our central nervous system, and we need it. So Charlie, I changed his diet. I told him to get more sunlight. I then started bringing a machine over to his house every day. That one, you see that one? And this machine, I'll talk a little bit about it, because this is what brought Charlie back to life. Okay? And I'm not going to say cures it. It supports the system to function again, and it brings back the electrical neutrons of the body to work again. I only can tell you something about in the early 1980s, when I was working with the U.S. Olympic team and with the Raiders. I got approached by Steve Laverne and the World Research Foundation. How many of you know about the World Research Foundation? It probably is one of the greatest libraries of our time. They're now associated in Arizona, at Sedona, Arizona. In 1980, I was invited with a group of 7 scientists to come over there. And I had no idea what I'm going into. It was a location in Palm Desert somewhere. I thought I was going to get kidnapped and get killed. It was worse than Venezuela when they kidnapped the athletes for money. And I thought that was my end. I went into this little place and I met these incredible people there. And I started to learn about a guy named Royal Rife. Now, I'm not going to say anything more than that. Rife, R-I-F-E. understand who this person is and what he did. And there I saw the most incredible microscope that he ever built in, and was able to see your blood beyond anything else to determine what frequency that you need to treat the bacteria or virus. And so I saw the actual Rife device. Well, I worked with the device just for fun, just to support the immune system, to support the individual, to get healthier. Not to cure them, but to get healthier. Okay? Because light, plasma is light. It's a helium, it's a gas. And if nature, if you understand the universe, how did the universe develop? By gases, called hydrogen and helium and other things, right, Susan? It was the universe, the Big Bang system, it was gases. We have to understand who we are. Once you understand who you are, you're all gods, all of you. And you have that power within yourself. And I learned that. Once I learned that, it changed my life. And I started seeing people recover from everything. Some people didn't because their mindset was too negative. They didn't want to. Those who wanted to, no problems. They can do it. So he started using this, and he says he started getting better and better. And he's been having lung cancer for 10 years, and it never went away. He had stage 4. Okay? So I started having him. He says, I need to have my own. So I had my engineers built one, very inexpensive, like that. The tubes are the secret. Those tubes are the foundation, what I learned in 1980. I was able to find the tubes and find somebody in Canada to make these tubes for everyone. I said, because everybody was using the wrong tubes. So he started using this every day. We got him on BRM, the best natural killer immune modulating supplement I've ever come across, that I've been working with this company out of Japan, Daiwa Health Development. BRM 500, it triples your natural killer cells, and it was scientifically proven at UCLA, who I knew the individual who did all the research. And then Nebraska University and Florida University also showed that it increases natural killer cells. Philip and I, we used to go to the Academy of Anti-Aging, right, in Las Vegas for how many years? 25 years. For 25 years. We would be there. And Daiwa was there for 25 years or more, and I was part of their group. I did a lot of their research. I would sit there and listen to doctors from all over the world, how just one product kept their patients from cancer alive, just that one product. So I started implementing that. I started telling him he needs vitamin D, vitamin K, calcium, magnesium, zinc, collagen. I make a collagen that is the only grass-fed, pasture-raised, made in the U.S. Everybody uses either Korean, Chinese, or European, or South America. I use the only grass-fed U.S. manufactured enzymatic process, not a hydrochloric. All the collagen is sulfuric acid. They make sulfuric acid to break down into hydrolyzation. And sulfuric acid can be a sulfur component. If you're sulfur intolerant, you can't take collagen. Everybody in the industry uses sulfuric acid in their collagen. I found a source not to do that for me. So he started getting better and better and better because we treated all these things here. We started working with him. So his nutrition, his diet, I had him do positive energy, breathing exercise. He went to his bedroom, got rid of the computer, the television, put it into another room, and he started getting better. You know, he's been in remission from cancer for 3 years. And the doctors cannot believe him that he's in remission for cancer for 3 years. I have a guy named Alan G. I don't want to tell you his name. He's a medical physician in the state of Washington. He used to practice at Sequoia Hospital right here in Redwood City. He was a hematologist, hematologist, oncologist, who came to me in 96, 98 with pancreatic cancer and prostate cancer. We did the same thing that we did with him, and he's now practicing medicine called Qigong medicine. That's all he does. He teaches you Qigong because he's a profound Qigong master. He went all over the world, and he's free of pancreatic cancer. He's not the only one. He referred me other people with pancreatic cancer that he knew, and they're still free of pancreatic cancer. Colon, stomach cancer patients, 25 years now, still free. I didn't do it. They did it. Nature did it. The universe, they went back to what they should be doing every day. Outdoors, breathing, exercising right, eating right, all of that. They should be, that's what did it. Okay, the mitochondria, the summary, the causes is, here's, again, I'm a big believer of sunlight, infrared light, all of these things. Because this is what feeds the body. This is the electrical system of our cells. And once we do this, we're going to feel better. We're going to regenerate ourselves. We're going to regenerate ourselves. Because we have eliminated the environment, the toxicity, the radiation that accumulates in our body. We're taking all that information that our ancestors have that caused their illness, or they develop something like herpes or anything, you carry it. Autism is the same thing. Autism is something that we have generations in the past that we carry today. If we don't do the natural delivery through the vaginal, we're missing probiotics that are very important in our brain and gut issue. The gut is the key component to every disease we know of today. It's called the endotoxins. If we eliminate the endotoxins from escaping into the blood, which can cause Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cancer, diabetes, MS, everything is well known by the endotoxin releasing into our body. I'll share something very interesting. I became very good friends with a fellow named Raymond Damanian, who invented the MRI. The MRI was his invention, but he was collaborating the research with Siemens, Westinghouse, GE, and Toshiba. And they stole his technology, and he won the biggest suit against them, several hundred million. So he decided to build another MRI called the Phonar, F-O-N-A-R, F-O-N-A-R. It's the only standing. He wanted to see the structures of our body while we're standing or reclining, but not laying down because you falsely see the brain function and all that. So he started working with the NFL and the dementia, concussion syndrome patients. And what he discovered when he built a MRI called the Phonar, he put a camera in there to watch the cerebral spinal fluid. The cerebral spinal fluid is the most important fluid in our body. It is the main protein of our body. I want you to go and Google Jim McMahon, the former quarterback for the Chicago Bears, and read his story about his severe dementia, that he had no awareness of who he was, where he lived, and his address. He ended up seeing Raymond Damanian, had an MRI done, and did a Phonar scan of his brain, and discovered it had nothing to do with concussion syndrome that he received as a football player. It was a distortion in the cervical called the atlas, and that the cerebral spinal fluid, which is 32 quarts per day, going up and down the body, you want to stimulate that. He found that the cerebral spinal fluid was deficient in everyone that had dementia, concussion. So what he did, he found a brilliant chiropractor named Scott Rosa, R-O-S-A, in New York, who worked with Raymond on hundreds of cases, not only MS, Parkinson's. He believes he can correct all autism. That's what Raymond says, by the Atlas thing. You want to put on that one video?
Yeah. Okay.
And then we're going to show you. So it's the life force of our body. How do we get the cerebral spinal fluid moving? Through movement, exercise, getting off our chairs, doing spinal, sacral, kinds of cranial sacral movement, atlas adjustment, concussions and dementia, he believes, is all due to the spinal fluid. Raymond was a surgeon, and he says, I used to do surgery on people, and I would see the spinal fluid, had no understanding how valuable it was until he developed the MRI.
Okay.
And the MRI. This is a fellow, can we hear it? Okay. This is him. This is Charlie recovering from cancer, and I took. You see the dog over there? It's not showing up.
This isn't going to work. Sorry.
Okay, here I'll see if I can get it on here. Charlie and his dog had a symptom called shunt liver. That means the liver was totally not functioning, and they wanted to put him to death, and he was on medication. He is now 100% recovered, no medication. He has no more liver damage, okay? Let me just show you, and I have a video, and he'll explain how he did it. He's in total remission. So this is one of the this was the main machine that made his total recovery, was using this device, which is a plasma healing tube. That was originally a foundation of what, it was originally something that Rife developed, and he had an understanding. And then this is something that even Matthew Cook will have in his practice. Just being in front of this machine several days, every day, for 5 minutes in the morning, 3 or 4 minutes at night, stimulates the brain and the thyroid and the immune system and your brain, which needs red. Now, this is one of the greatest discoveries I made a long time ago, and I'll tell you this right now. Brief. I'll do a brief. About in 1990 to 2000 something, I had many patients come to me because of my background in sports medicine, and one of them was a guy named Climbing Sun. Climbing Sun is an architectural designer for the whole Santa Cruz and Aptos area. And he came to me from medical doctors from Stanford and SAR, and he had no cartilage left on his hip. He was totally cartilage deficient, bone to bone, and severely arthritic, and he could not even walk into my room. He was like this. And if you go into my website, his testimonial and his recovery, how he made full recovery without surgery. He's one of 3 people I treated with this device. This device is probably the greatest thing I've ever come across because of Jerry Jacobson, theoretical physicist, who turned me around in understanding the human biological and how it works in resonance and frequencies. And 1 year later, he completely never needed surgery. He is now building his own home in Florida. If you want his information, I'll be glad to email you with his statement and his recovery completely from ever having surgery. He's running, surfing, climbing mountains, and he's playing basketball at 70 years old. Another person that I was hoping, the engineer who builds this for me, his mother had total disc degeneration. There's a guy named Barry Brookoff. Barry Brookoff is he's in Marin. You can look him up. He's our architectural designer, Barry Brookoff. You'll find him. He designed the whole Oakland fires, all the homes. He had severe herniated disc where he could not get out of bed, could not even walk. We gave him one of this. He laid on it. I treated him. He's totally free of any herniated disc, never needs surgery. He's one of many dozens of people with herniated discs that recover totally. It's a magnetic coil that puts out a very low frequency, and let me see if you can. Let me see if I can do this for you.
We have to wrap up, Bernd.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, this is the magnetic coil that produces the same frequency that your RNA and DNA produces in the body at a very low magnetic amp. I'm rebuilding them. This is brand new, so it's not available yet. These are all available, and they're very inexpensive. And Matthew will have this, and also this is the same thing as this that you can do on your home. But this one here is the person who built this totally recovered from Lyme disease. Lyme disease. That's what got me. And Dan is a brilliant guy. And Gene, the guy who also sells this and makes this, he totally recovered from Lyme disease.
What does that radiate?
Huh?
What does that radiate?
That radiates a plasma field of just helium. Nothing else. That's what Rife used. That's what Rife suggested we only use is helium. Everybody was using argon and helium together. But if you want, I'm going to see if I can find the thing. Anybody has any question, I'll answer quickly.
We actually don't have time for questions
Okay,
because
we
we're
don't
supposed
have
to be out
time
of
for
this room
questions.
at 10 o'clock. So we've gone a little over time. Thank you. If you have questions, Dr. Friedlander would be happy to talk to you in person up here. So sorry, we'll have to kind of pop out. Thank you. Thanks for Dr. Friedlander.